Johnny Morris stood frozen, towel in hand, as his blue-skinned alien neighbor gaped at his exposed genitalia. This was not how he imagined his first encounter with the Bolian species would go. The 28-year-old human had just moved into the Harmony Heights apartment complex, Earth's latest experiment in interspecies cohabitation. Fresh out of the shower, he'd left his door unlocked. A careless mistake that led to this awkward situation. Draco, the 25-year-old Bolian male, remained rooted in the doorway, his eyes, wide with shock, fixated on the area between Johnny's legs. In his hands, he clutched an ornate box, a traditional Bolian welcome gift, now forgotten in the face of this cultural catastrophe. Draco stammered, his blue skin taking on a deeper hue. I didn't know humans had external parts. Johnny quickly wrapped the towel around his waist, his cheeks burning. It's okay, he said, trying to sound nonchalant. On Earth, we usually knock before entering someone's home. Draco nodded, still visibly shaken. On Bolaris 9, our reproductive organs are internal. This is quite shocking. As the initial embarrassment subsided, Johnny noticed a glimmer of curiosity in Draco's eyes. The Bolian's gaze kept darting to the towel, as if trying to comprehend the alien anatomy hidden beneath. Perhaps we should discuss this cultural difference, Draco suggested, his voice a mix of discomfort and intrigue. Before Johnny could respond, a chime from the hallway announced the arrival of the building's AI assistant. Attention residents, it declared. An incident report has been filed regarding a potential cultural misunderstanding. Management requests all parties involved to report to the community center for a debriefing. Johnny sighed. This was going to be a long night. As he moved to close the door and change, he caught sight of Draco still standing there, looking lost. I'll meet you in the lobby in 10 minutes, Johnny said. We can walk to the community center together. Draco nodded, relief visible on his face. As he turned to leave, Johnny heard him mutter, "The Galactic Council will definitely want to hear about this." Closing the door, Johnny leaned against it, exhaling deeply. He'd signed up for the Interspecies exchange program to broaden his horizons, but he never expected to become an impromptu ambassador for human anatomy. As he dressed, his mind raced. How would the apartment management handle this? Would there be new privacy policies? Cultural sensitivity training seemed inevitable. And what about the diplomatic implications? Earth-Bolaris relations were still in their infancy. Could this incident set them back? One thing was certain. Life at Harmony Heights was about to get a lot more complicated. Johnny grabbed his resident ID and headed for the door, bracing himself for an evening of awkward explanations and interstellar diplomacy. Who knew that what was between his legs could cause such an intergalactic stir? The community center meeting proved to be as uncomfortable as Johnny had anticipated. For 2 hours, he endured probing questions from the apartment management and an interspecies relations expert. Draco, sitting across from him, alternated between looking mortified and fascinated. As they left the meeting, Johnny couldn't help but feel a mix of relief and trepidation. The immediate crisis had been averted, but he knew this was just the beginning of a much larger conversation. All residents must attend mandatory cultural sensitivity training, the complex manager had announced. We'll be rolling out a comprehensive program over the next few weeks. 2 weeks later, Johnny found himself in a crowded common room, surrounded by a diverse array of alien species. The air buzzed with a mixture of anticipation and discomfort as beings from across the galaxy prepared to delve into the intricacies of interspecies etiquette. As the session began, Johnny's attention was drawn to a figure across the room. She was unmistakably Zalarian. Her skin emitted a soft, pulsating glow that shifted between shades of lavender and turquoise. Her large, almond-shaped eyes scanned the room with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. The training session was as awkward as it was informative. Johnny found himself fielding questions about human anatomy and customs, his face burning as he explained concepts he'd never imagined having to verbalize. As the session ended, Johnny noticed the Zylarian woman lingering near the refreshment table, her luminescent skin flickering with what he interpreted as nervousness. Gathering his courage, he approached her. "Hi there," he said, offering a friendly smile. I'm Johnny, human, obviously. The Xylarian turned, her eyes widening slightly. Greetings. I am Zara, she replied, her voice melodious and slightly ethereal. I hope you don't find me rude, but I find your species fascinating, if a bit primitive. Johnny chuckled, running a hand through his hair. No offense taken. I'm sure our methods seem pretty crude compared to more advanced species. Zara's skin pulsed with a warm pink hue. I hope you don't mind me asking, but is it true that humans physically interact for reproduction? Johnny nodded, trying to keep his expression neutral. That's right. I take it Xylarians do things differently? Zara launched into an explanation of Xylarian reproduction, a complex process involving bioelectrical energy transfer that sounded more like a physics experiment than anything Johnny associated with intimacy. As they talked, Johnny found himself drawn to Zara's otherworldly beauty and genuine curiosity about human culture. When she admitted her fear of physical contact, he saw an opportunity. You know, he said carefully, if you're interested, I could explain more about human dating customs. No pressure, of course, just as a cultural exchange. Zara's skin flickered with a mix of blue, hesitation, and yellow, interest. That would be, educational, she said finally. Perhaps we could arrange some, what do you call them, dates? Over the next few weeks, Johnny and Zara embarked on a series of practice dates. They started small, a walk in the complex's arboretum, a shared meal in the common area. Johnny was careful to respect Zara's boundaries, explaining each human custom before enacting it. Their first attempt at holding hands was a memorable experience. Zara's skin glowed a brilliant orange as their fingers intertwined, and she let out a small gasp. It's warm, she said, wonder in her voice, and not unpleasant. As they spent more time together, Johnny found himself growing increasingly fond of Zara. Her inquisitive nature and the way her skin reflected her emotions were endlessly fascinating to him. However, their budding relationship didn't go unnoticed. Draco, Johnny's Bolian neighbor, watched their interactions with growing concern. One evening, as Zara was leaving Johnny's apartment after a movie night, Draco intercepted her in the hallway. Zara, he said, his blue skin darkening with worry, I feel I must warn you about the dangers of human mating practices. Zara's skin pulsed with confusion. Dangers, but Johnny has been nothing but respectful. Draco launched into a garbled explanation based on his misunderstanding from the shower incident. By the time he finished, Zara's skin had turned a sickly green, and she hurried back to her apartment without another word. The next day, Johnny found himself facing a very confused and slightly frightened Zara. It took hours of patient explanation and reassurance to clear up the misunderstanding, and even then, Zara seemed warier than before. The tension came to a head at the Interspecies mixer event organized by the apartment complex. The common room was transformed into a lively party space, with beings from dozens of worlds mingling and attempting to navigate the complex web of interspecies social norms. Johnny and Zara arrived together, her skin glowing a soft pink that Johnny had come to associate with contentment. As they made their rounds, Johnny couldn't help but notice the admiring glances Zara received from various species. It was nearing the end of the night when trouble struck. A clearly intoxicated human male stumbled up to Zara, his eyes roving over her bioluminescent form. Hey there, beautiful, he slurred, reaching out to touch Zara's arm. How about you and me go somewhere more private, and you can show me how you glow? Zara's skin flashed a bright red of alarm, her body rigid with fear. Before Johnny could react, the man lunged forward, trying to grab Zara. Johnny stepped between them, his voice calm but firm. That's enough, buddy. She's not interested, and you need to back off. The drunk man's face contorted with anger. Who do you think you are? Her keeper? Johnny stood his ground, keeping his voice level. I'm her friend, and I'm telling you to walk away. Now. For a tense moment, it seemed the situation might escalate. Then, mercifully, one of the man's friends appeared, apologizing profusely as he led the drunk man away. Johnny turned to Zara, whose skin was cycling through a rapid series of colors. Are you okay? He asked gently. Zara nodded, her large eyes fixed on Johnny. You protected me, she said softly, without violence or aggression. As the party wound down, Zara and Johnny found a quiet corner. Her skin had settled into a deep, pulsing blue that Johnny hadn't seen before. Johnny, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, I think I may have misjudged human intimacy. Would you be willing to teach me more? Johnny felt a warmth spread through his chest. Of course, he said, but only at a pace you're comfortable with. We have all the time in the world. As they left the party, hand in hand, Johnny couldn't help but feel that their interstellar adventure was just beginning. The path ahead was uncertain, but he was eager to explore it, one small step at a time. As they left the party, hand in hand, Johnny couldn't help but feel that their interstellar adventure was just beginning. The path ahead was uncertain, but he was eager to explore it, one small step at a time. Over the next few weeks, Johnny and Zara found themselves spending more time together, their initial curiosity blossoming into a deeper connection. They explored the complex's arboretum, marveling at the diverse alien flora. Zara's skin pulsed with vibrant hues as she examined the exotic plants, her natural bioluminescence creating a mesmerizing light show. During one of their walks, Johnny noticed a woman observing them from a distance, her gaze analytical and intense. As they passed by, she approached with purposeful strides. Excuse me, she said, her voice crisp and professional. I'm Dr. Elena Martinez, xenobiologist at the local university. I couldn't help but notice your unique pairing. Johnny and Zara exchanged glances, unsure how to respond. Dr. Martinez continued, her eyes alight with scientific curiosity. I'm conducting a study on interspecies relationships, and I believe you two would be perfect subjects. Would you be interested in participating? Johnny's scientific background piqued his interest. What kind of study? Dr. Martinez explained her research, detailing the potential insights into cross-species compatibility. As she spoke, Zara's skin flickered with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. It would involve a series of controlled experiments and observations, Dr. Martinez concluded. Nothing invasive, I assure you. After a lengthy discussion that evening, Johnny and Zara agreed to participate. They saw it as an opportunity to better understand their own unique dynamic. The following week, they found themselves in Dr. Martinez's lab, hooked up to various monitoring devices. The first phase of tests measured their physiological responses to each other's presence. Fascinating, Dr. Martinez murmured, studying the readouts. Despite your biological differences, you both exhibit elevated heart rates and increased hormonal activity when in proximity to one another. As the study progressed, Dr. Martinez introduced more intimate experiments. Johnny and Zara participated in monitored hand-holding sessions, their palms pressed together as sensors recorded their reactions. During one such session, Zara's skin began to pulse with a soft, rosy glow. I'm experiencing an unusual tingling sensation, she reported, her voice a mix of wonder and confusion. Dr. Martinez nodded, furiously taking notes. It seems the electrical impulses from Johnny's nervous system are interacting with your bioluminescent cells in unexpected ways. The experiments gradually increased in intimacy. Hugging sessions left Zara's skin shimmering with a kaleidoscope of colors, while Johnny reported a warm, buzzing sensation wherever their bodies made contact. Finally, Dr. Martinez proposed the most intimate experiment yet. I'd like you to attempt a human kiss, she said, adjusting the monitors attached to both Johnny and Zara. Zara's skin flickered with nervous energy, a rapid cycle of blues and greens. I'm not sure I'm ready for that, she admitted. Johnny took her hand, his touch gentle. We don't have to if you're uncomfortable. This is all at your pace, remember? Zara's colors slowly stabilized, settling into a warm, pulsing gold. No, I want to try. I trust you, Johnny. They leaned in slowly, their lips meeting in a soft, tentative kiss. The moment their mouths touched, the lab's instruments erupted in a cacophony of beeps and alarms. Zara's entire body blazed with an intense, white-hot glow that filled the room with brilliant light. Dr. Martinez gasped, her eyes wide as she stared at the readings. This is unprecedented. The electrical activity in both your bodies has synchronized, and Zara, your bioluminescence, it's mimicking patterns typically seen in Xylarian mating rituals. As the glow faded, Johnny and Zara stared at each other, both breathless and slightly dazed. That was, Johnny began, struggling to find words. Intense, Zara finished, her skin still shimmering with aftershocks of light. Dr. Martinez could barely contain her excitement. This could revolutionize our understanding of interspecies compatibility. The electrical impulses generated during human physical intimacy seem to stimulate Xylarian reproductive processes. It's possible that human and Xylarian mating practices are far more compatible than we ever imagined. News of the discovery spread quickly through the apartment complex and the scientific community. Residents reacted with a mix of fascination and concern. Draco, in particular, seemed troubled by the implications. This is unnatural, he muttered to Johnny one day in the elevator. Species shouldn't mix like this. It goes against the natural order. Johnny bristled at the comment but chose not to engage. He and Zara had enough to deal with without getting into arguments with neighbors. The apartment management, sensing the growing tension and curiosity among residents, organized a series of educational seminars on interspecies relationships. Dr. Martinez was invited as a keynote speaker, along with experts in alien biology, ethics, and cultural studies. Meanwhile, Johnny and Zara grappled with the implications of their growing feelings and newfound physiological compatibility. They continued to participate in Dr. Martinez's study while also exploring their relationship outside the clinical setting. One evening, as they sat on the roof of the apartment complex watching the sunset, Zara turned to Johnny, her skin glowing a soft, pulsing blue. Johnny, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, I'm scared. Everything is happening so fast, and now everyone's watching us, expecting, I don't know what. Johnny took her hand, marveling at the way her skin brightened at his touch. I know. It's a lot to process. But remember, this is our relationship. We decide how fast or slow we want to take things. Zara nodded, her colors shifting to a calmer palette. You're right. I just worry about what my people will think. Xylarian mating practices are so different from this. We'll figure it out together, Johnny assured her, one step at a time. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the sky in brilliant hues that rivaled Zara's bioluminescence, they sat in comfortable silence. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, media attention, scientific scrutiny, and the prying eyes of curious neighbors. But for now, they had this moment of peace. The next day, Johnny and Zara prepared for their first public outing as a couple. They had reservations at Cosmic Cuisine, a restaurant known for its interspecies menu and accommodating atmosphere. As they stood in front of Johnny's apartment door, ready to face the world, Zara's skin flickered with nervous energy. Johnny gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. Ready? He asked. Zara took a deep breath, her colors stabilizing into a determined gold. Ready. They stepped out into the hallway, unsure of what awaited them, but facing it together. Together, unsure of what awaited them, but facing it with determined grit. As they stepped into the hallway, they were met with a mix of curious glances and hushed whispers from their neighbors. Johnny felt Zara's grip tighten on his hand, her skin pulsing with a nervous energy that seemed to ripple through her entire body. They made their way to Cosmic Cuisine, a restaurant that prided itself on its interspecies menu and welcoming atmosphere. As they entered, the host's eyes widened in recognition. Ah, the famous couple, he said, his voice a mix of excitement and awe. We have a special table prepared for you. Johnny and Zara exchanged glances, realizing their relationship had become more public than they'd anticipated. They were led to a secluded booth designed to accommodate Zara's unique physiology while providing a measure of privacy. As they perused the menu, Johnny couldn't help but notice the furtive glances from other diners. Zara's skin flickered between shades of blue and purple, a clear sign of her discomfort. We can leave if you want, Johnny whispered, reaching across the table to take her hand. Zara's colors stabilized, settling into a determined gold. No, she said firmly. We have as much right to be here as anyone else. Their meal was a unique experience, with dishes designed to cater to both human and Xylarian tastes. As they ate, they found themselves relaxing, their conversation flowing naturally despite the attention they were receiving. However, their peaceful evening was interrupted when Dr. Elena Martinez approached their table, her eyes alight with excitement. "I'm so glad I found you both," she said, barely containing her enthusiasm. "I have incredible news about our research." Johnny raised an eyebrow. "Dr. Martinez, we're kind of in the middle of dinner." The scientist waved her hand dismissively. "This can't wait. My team has secured substantial funding to expand our studies on interspecies compatibility. We want to take our experiments to the next level, and you two are the key." Zara's skin pulsed with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "What exactly do you mean by the next level?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Martinez leaned in, her voice low. "We want to explore the full extent of human Xylarian physical intimacy, under controlled conditions, of course. The potential for groundbreaking discoveries is enormous." Johnny felt a rush of conflicting emotions. The scientist in him was intrigued by the possibilities, but he also felt protective of Zara and their relationship. "We'll need to discuss this privately," he said firmly. "This isn't the time or place." Dr. Martinez nodded, handing them each a datapad. "Of course, review the proposal and let me know your decision. But please, don't take too long. This could change everything we know about interspecies relations." As she left, Johnny and Zara sat in stunned silence. Their quiet dinner had suddenly become a turning point in their relationship, and potentially in the future of human-alien interactions. Over the next few days, Johnny and Zara found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of attention. Their apartment complex became a hotbed of activity, with new alien and human residents moving in, drawn by the unique social experiment unfolding within its walls. They spent hours discussing Dr. Martinez's proposal, weighing the potential benefits against their own privacy and comfort. Zara, though initially apprehensive, found herself increasingly curious about human intimacy. "I want to understand," she told Johnny one evening, her skin glowing a soft, pulsing blue. "Not just for science, but for us." Johnny nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. "We'll take it slow," he promised, "and we can stop any time you feel uncomfortable." They agreed to participate in Dr. Martinez's expanded study, setting a date for their first session in her lab. As they prepared for the experiment, Johnny couldn't help but notice the increasing tension in the apartment complex. Draco, his Bolian neighbor, had taken to muttering disapprovingly whenever he saw Johnny and Zara together. Other conservative aliens seemed to be rallying around him, forming a vocal opposition to interspecies relationships. The day of the experiment arrived, and Johnny and Zara found themselves in Dr. Martinez's lab, surrounded by monitoring equipment. The air was thick with anticipation as they began with gentle touches and kisses. As their intimacy deepened, Zara's skin began to glow with an intensity Johnny had never seen before. The monitors beeped frantically, recording unprecedented levels of neural activity and hormonal responses. Suddenly, Zara's body began to emit a low-level electromagnetic field. Dr. Martinez gasped, her eyes wide with excitement. "This is incredible. This phenomenon has only been observed during Xylarian mating rituals." As they continued, the electromagnetic field intensified. Sparks flew from some of the monitoring equipment, and alarms began to blare. "We need to stop," Dr. Martinez called out, her voice urgent. "The readings are off the charts. We need to analyze this data immediately." Johnny and Zara separated, both breathless and slightly dazed. Zara's skin continued to pulse with a brilliant light, her large eyes wide with a mix of wonder and confusion. "That was intense," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Before they could fully process what had happened, the lab door burst open. A group of stern-faced individuals in official uniforms entered, led by a human man with a severe expression. "Dr. Martinez," he said, his voice cold. "I'm Dr. Victor Reeves from the Global Science Institute. We're here to shut down this experiment immediately. These activities pose a potential threat to both species involved." As chaos erupted in the lab, Johnny pulled Zara close, acutely aware that their personal exploration had suddenly become a matter of galactic importance. The future of human-alien relations hung in the balance, and they found themselves at the very center of the storm. The lab erupted into chaos as Dr. Reeves and his team attempted to shut down the experiment. Johnny instinctively pulled Zara closer, his heart racing as he tried to make sense of the situation. "What's going on?" Zara whispered, her skin pulsing with anxious flashes of yellow and red. Before Johnny could respond, Dr. Martinez stepped between them and the intruders. "Dr. Reeves, this is a sanctioned experiment. You have no authority to—" "I have every authority," Reeves interrupted, his voice sharp. "This research poses a clear and present danger to both species involved. We're shutting it down, effective immediately." As Reeves's team began disconnecting equipment and gathering data pads, a tall, distinguished Xylarian entered the lab, flanked by human officials. The newcomer's skin shimmered with an authoritative deep blue. "I am Ambassador Zen of Xylaria," he announced, his multifaceted eyes scanning the room. "We received word of potentially dangerous experiments involving our kind. I demand an explanation." The next few hours passed in a blur of heated discussions and tense negotiations. Johnny and Zara found themselves at the center of an impromptu diplomatic summit, recounting their experiences to a mixed panel of human and Xylarian officials. As the meeting concluded, Ambassador Zen addressed the room. "Until we can ensure the safety of both species, we have no choice but to implement a temporary ban on human-Xylarian intimate contact. This decision is final." The announcement sent shockwaves through the scientific community and beyond. Within days, protests erupted across Earth and Xylaria. Supporters of interspecies relationships clashed with conservative groups in the streets, their confrontations broadcast across the galaxy. Amidst the turmoil, Johnny and Zara retreated to their apartment, grappling with the implications of the ban. They sat on the couch, Zara's head resting on Johnny's shoulder, her skin a muted palette of conflicting emotions. "What are we going to do?" Zara asked, her voice barely audible. Before Johnny could answer, their comm unit chimed. Dr. Martinez's face appeared on the screen, her eyes bright with excitement despite the dark circles beneath them. "I have a proposal," she said without preamble. "A way to continue our research while addressing the government's concerns." She outlined her plan, a controlled environment on a neutral space station where Johnny and Zara could safely explore their physical relationship under constant monitoring. It was a controversial solution, but one that both governments reluctantly agreed to after days of negotiation. 2 weeks later, Johnny and Zara found themselves aboard a shuttle, ascending through Earth's atmosphere. Zara pressed her face against the viewport, her skin rippling with awe as the planet shrank beneath them. "It's beautiful," she breathed. Johnny squeezed her hand, marveling at how her bioluminescence seemed to mimic the stars emerging around them. The space station loomed ahead, a gleaming structure of metal and glass orbiting Earth. As they docked, Johnny felt a mix of anticipation and nervousness. This would be their home for the foreseeable future, a place where they would push the boundaries of interspecies relations. They were greeted by Dr. Martinez and a tall, willowy Xylarian with iridescent skin that shifted like oil on water. "Welcome," the Xylarian said, her voice melodious. "I am Dr. Kira Zhen, specialist in Xylarian reproductive biology. I'll be working with Dr. Martinez to ensure your safety and comfort during this study." As they toured the facility, Johnny noticed Dr. Victor Reeves lurking in the background, his face set in a permanent scowl. The man's presence was a constant reminder of the controversy surrounding their relationship. The experiments began slowly, with Johnny and Zara replicating the intimacy they had shared on Earth. But as days turned to weeks, their connection deepened, and Zara's responses grew more intense. Her skin displayed new patterns and colors, pulsing with previously unseen hues that left the research team scrambling to document each change. During one session, as Johnny trailed his fingers along Zara's arm, her skin erupted in a cascade of shimmering light. The monitoring equipment went haywire, sensors overloading as they tried to capture the surge of bioelectrical energy. "Fascinating," Dr. Zhen murmured, her eyes wide as she studied the readings. "This energy signature, it's unlike anything we've seen before. The potential applications for energy production, even medical treatments." As the experiments progressed, Johnny and Zara found themselves lost in the intensity of their connection. They were vaguely aware of the excitement buzzing around them, of Dr. Martinez and Dr. Jen's animated discussions about new discoveries. But in those moments of intimacy, their world narrowed to just the two of them. It was during one such moment, as they reached new heights of pleasure, that something extraordinary happened. Zara's body arched, her skin blazing with light so bright Johnny had to shield his eyes. He felt a surge of energy pass between them, unlike anything he had experienced before. When he could see again, he gasped. Zara's skin had taken on a crystalline structure, refracting light in dazzling patterns. The room plunged into darkness as alarms blared, the station's systems overloading from the sudden energy surge. In the ensuing chaos, Johnny held Zara close, marveling at the change in her. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice filled with concern and wonder. Zara's crystalline skin pulsed softly as she nodded. "I feel different, powerful." As emergency lights flickered on, they became aware of the commotion outside their chamber. Through the observation window, they could see Dr. Martinez and her team scrambling to restore systems. Suddenly, the door to their chamber sealed shut with a hiss. Johnny tried the control panel, but it remained dark and unresponsive. "We're locked in," he realized, a hint of panic creeping into his voice. Zara's skin dimmed slightly, her anxiety visible in the fading light. "What's happening out there?" As they peered out the window, they caught a glimpse of Dr. Reeves hunched over a computer terminal, his fingers flying across the keys. His face was contorted in a mix of fear and willpower. "He's doing something," Johnny muttered, his suspicion growing. "Something he doesn't want anyone else to see." In the dim emergency lighting, Zara's crystalline skin cast ethereal patterns across the walls. Johnny found himself captivated by the sight, even as worry gnawed at him. They were trapped, cut off from the rest of the station, with no idea what was happening beyond their chamber. As the minutes ticked by, the air in the room began to feel thinner. Johnny's scientific mind quickly grasped the implications. "The life support systems," he said, his voice tight. "They must be failing." Zara's skin pulsed with alarm, casting sharp shadows across the room. "What do we do?" Johnny's mind raced, assessing their options. They needed to escape to alert the others about Dr. Reeves's actions. But how? He turned to Zara, an idea forming. "Your bioluminescence," he said. "Can you control it? Make it brighter?" Zara nodded, her skin brightening in response. As the room filled with her radiance, Johnny began to examine every inch of the chamber, looking for a way out. Outside, unbeknownst to them, a new crisis was unfolding. A Xylarian military vessel had appeared in orbit, responding to a distress call none of the station's crew had sent. As General Vex demanded immediate access to the station, the crew raced against time to restore communications and prevent an interstellar incident. In their sealed chamber, Johnny and Zara worked together, their newfound intimacy now a tool for survival. As Zara's light illuminated hidden access panels and emergency systems, they realized that their unique connection might be the key to saving not just themselves, but the future of human-Xylarian relations. With time running out and the stakes higher than ever, they prepared to make their escape, unaware of the diplomatic powder keg waiting for them on the other side of the door. The tension in the room was palpable as Johnny and Zara exchanged worried glances, their minds racing to find a solution. Suddenly, Zara's skin began to pulse with an intense light, casting sharp shadows across the chamber. Johnny's eyes widened as he realized the potential of her newfound abilities. "Zara," he said, his voice urgent, "can you focus your light on the control panel? Maybe we can overload the circuits and unlock the door." Zara nodded, her crystalline skin refracting light in dazzling patterns as she concentrated her energy. The air crackled with electricity as she directed a beam of intense light at the control panel. Sparks flew and the acrid smell of burning circuitry filled the air. With a hiss, the door slid open, revealing the chaos beyond. Emergency lights flickered dimly in the corridor, casting an eerie glow on the faces of frantic crew members rushing past. Johnny grasped Zara's hand, and they stepped out into the hallway. "We need to get to the main control room," he said, his scientific mind already formulating a plan. "If we can explain what happened, Maybe we can prevent this from escalating further. As they navigated through the darkened corridors, Zara's bioluminescence proved invaluable. Her soft glow illuminated their path, guiding them through the labyrinth of the space station. Crew members they passed stared in awe at Zara's transformed appearance, her crystalline skin shimmering like starlight. They arrived at the main control room to find it in disarray. Captain Sarah Burns stood at the center, barking orders as her team worked feverishly to restore the station's systems. "Captain Burns," Johnny called out, drawing her attention. "We need to talk. There's something you need to know." The captain turned, her eyes widening at the sight of Zara's transformed state. "What in the name of—" Before she could finish, a warning klaxon blared through the station. A young officer at one of the few functioning consoles called out, "Captain, we've got an incoming Xylarian vessel. They're not responding to hails and are on an intercept course." Captain Burns cursed under her breath. "Of all the times for a diplomatic incident," she muttered, then turned to Johnny and Zara. "You two, explain. Quickly." Johnny launched into a concise explanation of the experiment's results and Dr. Reeves's suspicious behavior. As he spoke, Zara's skin pulsed with corroborating patterns, her bioluminescence seeming to underscore key points in Johnny's narrative. The captain listened intently, her expression growing more grave with each passing moment. When Johnny finished, she nodded grimly. "This complicates things. We've got a potential interstellar incident brewing, and now this." She paused, considering her options. "We need to buy time. If we can stall the Xylarians, maybe we can get our systems back online and explain the situation." Just then, Dr. Martinez and Dr. Zhen burst into the control room, their faces flushed with excitement despite the chaos around them. "Captain," Dr. Martinez called out, waving a data pad. "You need to see this. The energy signature from Johnny and Zara's interaction, it's unlike anything we've ever seen. The implications for interstellar travel alone are staggering." Captain Burns glanced at the approaching Xylarian ship on the main view screen, then back at Johnny and Zara. Her eyes narrowed as she came to a decision. "All right, you two are going to help us prevent an interstellar war. Are you up for it?" Johnny and Zara exchanged a look, their hands intertwining. Zara's skin glowed with a soft, determined blue. "We're ready," Johnny answered for both of them. "Good," Captain Burns nodded, "because General Vex's ship is about to dock, and you're going to be our welcoming committee." As the Xylarian ship initiated its docking procedure, Johnny and Zara stood side by side in the airlock chamber. Johnny could feel the slight tremor in Zara's hand, her nervousness visible in the flickering patterns across her skin. "It's going to be okay," he murmured, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. "We're in this together." The airlock cycled, and the doors hissed open. General Vex stepped through, flanked by a contingent of Xylarian security officers. His multifaceted eyes swept the chamber, widening slightly at the sight of Johnny and Zara. "What is the meaning of this?" General Vex demanded, his voice a low, resonant hum. "We received a distress signal." He broke off, staring at Zara's transformed appearance. Her crystalline skin pulsed with a soft, welcoming light, a physical manifestation of her comfort with Johnny that seemed to catch the general off guard. Johnny stepped forward, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "General Vex, I'm Johnny Chen, and this is Zara. We're here to explain the situation and share some extraordinary discoveries that could benefit both our species." As Johnny began to outline the events that had transpired, Zara's skin rippled with corroborating patterns, adding a visual element to their narrative. General Vex's expression shifted from suspicion to curiosity as Johnny described the unique energy signature produced by their interaction and its potential applications. "Nada. And that's why we believe this research is crucial," Johnny concluded. "The advancements in energy production, medical treatments, and interstellar travel could revolutionize life for both humans and Xylarians." General Vex remained silent for a moment, his eyes darting between Johnny and Zara. "These claims are significant," he said finally. "But how can we be certain?" His words were cut short as the station shuddered, the lights flickering ominously. Without hesitation, Zara stepped forward, her skin blazing with intense light. She extended her hands and a shimmering bioelectrical field surrounded her, expanding outward to encompass the entire docking bay. The fluctuations in the station's power grid stabilized, the lights steadying as Zara maintained her energy field. General Vex stared in amazement, his mandibles clicking in what Johnny recognized as a sign of deep interest. "Extraordinary," the general murmured. "I've never seen a Xylarian exhibit such control over their bioluminescence, let alone use it to affect external systems." As Zara's display faded, Dr. Martinez and Dr. Zhen arrived, armed with data pads full of their preliminary findings. They launched into an enthusiastic explanation of the unique energy signature and its potential applications, their excitement palpable even to the stoic Xylarian general. General Vex listened intently, his initial skepticism giving way to genuine interest. "These findings," he said slowly, "if verified, could indeed change the course of both our civilizations." He turned to Johnny and Zara, his multifaceted eyes gleaming. "Your willingness to explore the unknown, to bridge the gap between our species, is admirable." The tension in the room began to dissipate as General Vex engaged in a detailed discussion with the scientists. Johnny felt a wave of relief wash over him, knowing that they had averted a potential disaster and opened the door to a new era of cooperation. As the conversation continued, Captain Burns approached Johnny and Zara. "You two have done more for interspecies relations in the past hour than our diplomats have managed in years," she said, a hint of a smile on her usually stern face. "But this is just the beginning. General Vex is insisting that you return to Earth for further observation and study." Johnny nodded, understanding the implications. Their relationship, once a personal journey of discovery, had become a matter of galactic importance. He looked at Zara, her crystalline skin shimmering with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "Are you ready for this?" he asked softly. Zara's skin pulsed with a warm, determined glow. "As long as we're together," she replied, her voice steady. As they prepared to board the shuttle that would take them back to Earth, Johnny and Zara stood at the viewport, gazing out at the stars. The space station that had been their home for the past weeks grew smaller behind them, a symbol of the boundaries they had pushed and the new frontier they had opened. The shuttle hummed to life, carrying them towards an uncertain future filled with scientific breakthroughs, diplomatic challenges, and the continuing evolution of their unique bond. As Earth grew larger in the viewport, Johnny and Zara knew that their journey was just the beginning. The true test of their relationship and its impact on the future of human-Xylarian relations was only just beginning. Beginning lay before them. As the shuttle entered Earth's atmosphere, Johnny felt a tightening in his chest. The familiar blue and green orb grew larger in the viewport, a sight he had longed for during his time on the space station. Yet now, as they descended through wispy clouds, he found himself gripped by a strange mix of anticipation and unease. Zara's hand found his, her crystalline skin emitting a soft, comforting glow. "It will be all right," she said, her voice a soothing melody amidst the shuttle's re-entry rumble. Johnny nodded, squeezing her hand gently. "I know. It's just, everything's going to change, isn't it?" Before Zara could respond, the shuttle touched down with a gentle thud. As the airlock hissed open, they were immediately assaulted by a cacophony of noise, shouted questions, camera flashes, and the general din of a large crowd. "Mr. Chen, Miss Zara, over here. Can you comment on the nature of your relationship? Is it true that your interaction could revolutionize interstellar travel?" The barrage of questions was overwhelming. Johnny instinctively stepped closer to Zara, whose skin pulsed with a rapid, anxious pattern. As they made their way through the throng, flanked by security personnel, Johnny caught glimpses of protest signs amid the sea of faces. Some proclaimed messages of unity and acceptance, while others bore more hostile slogans. "This way," a stern-faced woman in a crisp suit directed them towards a waiting vehicle. As the doors closed behind them, muffling the chaos outside, Johnny let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. The drive to their apartment complex was surreal. Streets Johnny had walked countless times before were now lined with curious onlookers and news vans. As they approached their destination, his eyes widened in disbelief. The once quiet residential area had been transformed. A perimeter of security fencing surrounded the complex, with checkpoints manned by both human and Xylarian personnel. Within the fenced area, a cluster of prefabricated structures had sprung up, their gleaming surfaces a stark contrast to the familiar brick of the apartment buildings. "What is all this?" Zara asked, her voice tinged with awe and confusion. Their driver, breaking his stoic silence, replied, "The research facility. It was constructed while you were in transit from the space station. Dr. Martinez and Dr. Zhen are already set up and waiting for you." As they passed through the security checkpoint, Johnny noticed Draco, his Bolian neighbor, engaged in animated conversation with a human security officer. The blue-skinned alien caught Johnny's eye and offered a surprisingly warm smile and a wave. The vehicle came to a stop in front of Johnny's building. As they stepped out, Dr. Martinez hurried over, her face beaming with excitement. "Johnny, Zara, welcome back," she greeted them, her eyes darting between the two with terrifying curiosity. "I hope you're not too jet-lagged. We have so much to discuss." Before Johnny could respond, a tall, imposing figure emerged from the nearby research facility. The man's steel-gray hair and piercing blue eyes gave him an air of authority that seemed to chill the air around him. "Dr. Alexei Volkov," he introduced himself, his Russian accent thick and his handshake firm. "I will be overseeing this research project." His gaze lingered on Zara, a mix of scientific curiosity and thinly veiled suspicion in his eyes. "Now," Dr. Volkov continued, "we must begin our examinations immediately. Time is of the essence, and we cannot afford any complications." Johnny felt Zara tense beside him, her skin dimming slightly. He opened his mouth to protest, to insist they needed time to settle in, but Dr. Martinez interjected. "Perhaps we could allow them a moment to freshen up," she suggested diplomatically. "The examinations can wait an hour or two." Dr. Volkov's lips thinned in disapproval, but he nodded curtly. "Very well. 2 hours, not a minute more." As they were led to their respective apartments, Johnny couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The familiar hallways now seemed alien, transformed by the weight of expectation and scrutiny that surrounded them. Inside his apartment, Johnny found everything exactly as he had left it, yet somehow changed. The air felt charged, as if the very walls were aware of the momentous events that had transpired. A soft knock at his door pulled him from his thoughts. He opened it to find Zara, her crystalline skin pulsing with a gentle, questioning light. "Can I come in?" she asked softly. Johnny nodded, stepping aside to let her enter. As the door closed behind her, he felt a familiar warmth spreading through him, a sensation he had sorely missed during their restricted time on the shuttle. Zara's fingers intertwined with his, her touch sending a pleasant tingle up his arm. "Johnny," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "what's going to happen to us?" He pulled her close, feeling the hum of bioelectrical energy that always seemed to surround her now. "I don't know," he admitted, "but whatever comes, we'll face it together." As they stood there holding each other in the quiet of Johnny's apartment, neither of them noticed the faint blue glow that had begun to emanate from Johnny's skin, mirroring the pulsing light of Zara's crystalline form. Outside, the makeshift research facility hummed with activity. Dr. Volkov stood at a window, watching the apartment building with narrow eyes. Behind him, Dr. Martinez and Dr. Zhen pored over data readouts, their excited whispers a counterpoint to the Russian scientists' brooding silence. In 2 hours, the test would begin. In 2 hours, Johnny and Zara's relationship would be subjected to the cold, analytical gaze of science. But for now, in this brief moment of calm before the storm, they found solace in each other's embrace, unaware of the profound changes already taking place within them. Changes that would soon challenge everything they thought they knew about themselves and each other. The faint blue glow emanating from Johnny's skin faded as he and Zara reluctantly separated, aware that their 2 hours of respite were nearly up. As they made their way to the research facility, Johnny couldn't help but notice the curious glances from both human and alien residents of the complex. Dr. Volkov was waiting for them at the entrance, his stern expression betraying a hint of impatience. "Good, you're here. Let's begin," he said, ushering them inside. The following weeks were a whirlwind of tests, examinations, and breakthroughs. Johnny and Zara found themselves at the center of a global phenomenon, their every interaction scrutinized and analyzed. Despite the pressure and the risks involved, they remained committed to the research, driven by their desire to advance interspecies, understanding in their deepening bond with each other. One evening, as they sat in the facility's break room, Dr. Martinez approached them with excitement in her eyes. "We've done it," she exclaimed, barely containing her enthusiasm. "We've developed a way for you to safely engage in physical contact." Johnny and Zara exchanged hopeful glances as Dr. Martinez explained the breakthrough. A specially designed suit for Johnny would safely channel and disperse Zara's bioelectrical emissions, while a neutralizing field for Zara would prevent uncontrolled energy discharges. The next day, Johnny stood nervously as Dr. Jen helped him into the sleek, form-fitting suit. It hummed softly as it activated, a faint blue glow outlining his body. Across the room, Zara stepped into a shimmering field projected by a series of emitters. As they approached each other, Johnny could feel his heart racing. He reached out, his gloved hand hovering inches from Zara's crystalline skin. With a deep breath, he closed the distance. The moment their hands touched, a warm, pleasant tingle spread through Johnny's body. Zara's skin rippled with patterns of light, her eyes wide with wonder. "It doesn't hurt," she whispered, her voice filled with awe. Over the next few days, Johnny and Zara explored their newfound ability to touch safely. What began as tentative hand-holding soon progressed to tender embraces, and eventually to more intimate explorations. One night, as they lay together in a specially prepared room within the research facility, Zara traced her fingers along Johnny's suited chest. "I never imagined I could feel this way," she murmured, her skin pulsing with a soft, warm glow. "Human mating. It's not at all what I feared. It's beautiful." Johnny smiled, pulling her closer. "It's even more beautiful with you," he replied, marveling at how her crystalline form fit perfectly against his body. As their relationship deepened, life in the apartment complex began to change. Draco, Johnny's Bolian neighbor, took it upon himself to organize a series of cultural exchange events. The once quiet courtyard became a hub of activity, filled with the sounds of various languages and the aromas of foods from across the galaxy. During one such event, Johnny and Zara stood hand in hand, watching as humans and aliens mingled, sharing stories and traditions. Draco approached them, his blue skin gleaming in the evening light. "You two have inspired quite a change around here," he said, gesturing to the diverse gathering. As weeks turned into months, Johnny and Zara's bond continued to grow stronger. One evening, as they walked through the now familiar research facility, Johnny felt a surge of emotion. He stopped, turning to face Zara. "I want to spend the rest of my life with you," he said, his voice filled with conviction. "Will you bond with me? Permanently?" Zara's skin lit up with a dazzling display of colors, her joy radiating from every facet of her crystalline form. "Yes," she breathed, pulling Johnny into a tight embrace. They decided on a private ceremony, attended only by their closest friends and colleagues. To everyone's surprise, Draco volunteered to officiate, citing his newfound interest in interspecies customs. On the day of the ceremony, Johnny stood in a clearing within the apartment complex's central garden, wearing his protective suit adorned with subtle decorations. Zara approached, her crystalline body shimmering with patterns of light that seemed to dance with excitement. As Draco began the ceremony, weaving together elements of both human and Xylarian traditions, Johnny and Zara joined hands. Suddenly, their bioelectrical fields began to synchronize, creating a spectacular display of light and energy that rippled through the air around them. Dr. Martinez, watching from the small gathering of witnesses, gasped in astonishment. The energy signature emanating from the couple had stabilized, creating a sustainable, low-level field that seemed to enhance both partners without the need for containment measures. As Johnny and Zara sealed their union with a kiss, the assembled crowd erupted in cheers and applause. The newly bonded couple stood together, their combined glow illuminating the garden and symbolizing a new era of interspecies harmony. News of their successful bonding and the unexpected breakthrough spread quickly. Within days, representatives from both human and Xylarian authorities arrived at the apartment complex, eager to learn more about the stable human-Xylarian partnership. In a meeting room hastily set up in one of the prefab structures, Johnny and Zara sat hand in hand, facing a panel of officials. A stern-looking human diplomat leaned forward, his eyes intense. "Mr. Chen, Ms. Zara, your union has opened up possibilities we never imagined. We believe it could be the key to fostering greater understanding and cooperation between our species." A Xylarian representative, her crystalline form pulsing with a pattern that Johnny had come to recognize as excitement, added, "We propose designating this apartment complex as the first Interspecies Harmony Zone, a model for future mixed-species communities across the galaxy." As Johnny and Zara exchanged glances, both feeling a mix of excitement and trepidation at the prospect of their relationship becoming a galactic model, they realized that their journey was just getting started. The apartment complex that had once been just a home was now poised to become the center of a new era in interstellar relations.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.